Tropical season in the Atlantic officially ended on November 30th, and by most measures it was well within the bounds of what would be considered an average season. Here's a few stats. In red, what happened. In blue, the climatological averages. Named storms and hurricanes were a tad below average, though 4 of the 5 hurricanes reached major hurricane status, Category 3 or higher. ACE stands for Accumulated Cyclone Energy, a measure that combines how long storms last with how strong they are, summed over all storms, and that was a bit above average. Now, what you don't see here are 2 interesting anomalies. First, 3 of the hurricanes were Category 5s, Melissa, Umberto, and Aaron, only the second time that more than 2 Cat 5s have been observed in the Atlantic in the same year. The other time was 2005, when 4 of the 30 named storms became Category 5s. Secondly, no hurricanes made landfall in the U.S. for the first time in 10 years. The only storm that did was a tropical storm named Chantal in South Carolina in July. Of course, tropical cyclones form worldwide. Here's a plot of the tracks of 20 years worth of storms, just so you can see the geographic distribution. Because the northern oceans are the main driver of global statistics on tropical cyclones, here's the same table as earlier, but for the entire northern hemisphere this year. And once again, on balance, global activity this year in terms of named storms and hurricanes has been about average. But major hurricanes and the global ACE are actually pretty far below average this year. I want to return to the previous diagram that shows tropical cyclone tracks worldwide, zoom in a bit, and focus on the area near the equator. I've drawn the 5 degrees north and 5 degrees south latitude lines. Notice the almost total lack of tropical cyclone tracks between those lines. The fact is they only rarely form close to the equator, maybe one every 3 to 5 years. That's because tropical cyclones, like all low-pressure systems, derive their circulation from the Earth's rotation via a process called the Coriolis effect, and this effect is very weak near the equator. As a result, disorganized clusters of tropical thunderstorms can't spin up into a tropical storm if they're too close to the equator. But late last month it happened. A weak tropical storm developed in the eastern Indian Ocean about 3.5 degrees north of the equator. Named Senyar, it formed in the narrow water body between Malaysia and Sumatra known as the Strait of Malacca, only the second storm known to have formed there since the late 1800s. Senyar was a tropical storm for only 24 hours, the portion of the track here in green, but brought torrential rain and widespread deadly flooding in Malaysia and Indonesia. It's possible that a funneling of winds between Malaysia and Sumatra, coupled with the terrain in both areas, may have artificially introduced a sort of low-level spin that led to the formation of this unusual tropical storm. The closest a tropical storm has formed to the equator is 100 miles at 1.4 degrees north latitude, a storm named Vamay in 2001. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment with more.